Hello there! Happy May the 4th, everybody. It's this time of year again, my favorite one. Spring is in a full attack mode. Tomorrow is my birthday. Don't ask which one. And the Star Wars content is everywhere. What a time to be alive. If you are a Star Wars fan, and in this case, you have to deal with a big one. Literally. I want to highlight some classic games from the universe. The great ones that went out of canon mostly. Because if you may or may not know, the day that Star Wars was sold in 2012 to Disney, the whole canon changed and the stuff that was already done, apart from the movies of course, was deemed legends. And no longer was canon. It seemed like sad times, but as the time passed, writers and creators from Disney took more and more inspiration from legends and brought some cool characters and story arcs back to canon. Like Admiral Thrawn, for example. Well, I digress too much. Let's get into the games. Locked.
Must be a way to open this. No problem.
And in our current timeline, most of the games I will talk about today are in Legends area. But it doesn't make them worse by any means. Some of them tackle the themes from the movies much better than anything that was created in the new canon. I'll tell you specifically which ones. Have you seen Andor or Rogue One? Masterpiece. In my opinion, the best content that Disney brought to the Star Wars. But before Andor, there was another rebel spy, and in Legends, he was the one who stole Death Star plans. Oh, and did so much more. His name was Kyle Katarn. This is my absolute GOAT of Legends. Kyle Katarn's story span across multiple games and the character development was absolutely amazing. First title that introduced him was Star Wars Dark Forces. This one could easily go to the FPS Mayhem top picks I made some time ago. You can watch it here or here. But I was saving this for an occasion. Dark Forces is basically an FPS set in Star Wars universe. You traverse through tight corridors, send stormtroopers using various blasters into oblivion, with original compositions by John Williams in MIDI edition blasting through your speakers. Gameplay-wise, every mission is set on different base location and we are tasked with the set of objectives to complete. Simple. The story was also simple, as it was back in the day in most FPS games. You are Kyle Katarn, a mercenary hired by the Rebel Alliance to steal the Death Star plans. Of course, thanks to you, the player, the mission was a great success, but the game wasn't done yet. Time skipping the story took Kyle to after the battle for Yavin and introduced us to Dark Troopers program, which created elite fighters for the Empire, and yet again, we are tasked to investigate and shut down the evil deeds of the Empire. The Kyle story in Dark Forces was merely a beginning. The next one, Star Wars Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, is a banger twist in the story. The game introduced real actors in the cutscenes, so it became more alive, more believable, and we got way more attached to the characters. We rejoined Katarn after the events of the Return of the Jedi, so the second Death Star is down, Emperor is dead, the New Republic is rising. Kyle is hunting for a holodisk that belonged to his late father, Morgan Katarn. While Imperial Inquisitor, yes, Imperial Inquisitor, introduced back in 1997. This is one of the things that were brought to the canon just recently that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, Imperial Inquisitor is on a hunt for Valley of the Jedi, a sacred place of the Jedi, with a company of 7 Dark Jedi. And who would have thought that on the holodisk that Kyle finds is a quest from his father to protect the Valley of the Jedi? And then he receives a lightsaber, so this is where the fun begins. Well, not immediately. We get to swing our favorite weapon. We acquire lightsaber around mission 4. Gameplay-wise, this game felt much bigger than the predecessor. It was an FPS shooter at first, but after getting the lightsaber, camera could be switched to third person, and from the perspective of time, it was a bit clunky and basic. Kyle was swinging the saber like a baseball bat, but hey, back then I didn't care, I think nobody did. The tone, the storytelling, the ethical decision that we made along the story was a breath of fresh air, and it really helped in immersing yourself as the mercenary destined to be a Jedi Knight, if he liked it or not. I won't spoil this whole story. If you're a fan and didn't have a chance to go deeper into Legend content, it's absolutely worth it. Thankfully, LucasArts didn't stop there. Next story of Kyle Katarn is my absolute favorite of them all. Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast is peak Star Wars. Imagine Kyle Katarn, a guy who has every reason to be a hero, but chooses to be a ghost. He already saved the galaxy once, but he saw the darkness inside himself and got scared, so he gave up his lightsaber, cut himself off the Force and went back to being a simple mercenary with a blaster at his hip and his partner Jan Ors at his side. While investigating an Imperial outpost, they run into a shadow from the past, Desan, a massive lizard-like dark Jedi who doesn't just want to win, he wants to humiliate Kyle. Desan kills Jan right in front of Kyle's eyes, and because Kyle has no powers, he's absolutely helpless to stop it. He's left beaten in the dirt, consumed by rage that has been simmering for years. The story then becomes a desperate, dangerous sprint. Kyle realizes that to get revenge, he has to become the very thing he's afraid of. He cheats. He goes back to the Valley of Jedi and basically fast-forwards his connection to the Force. It's a reckless, dark shortcut that worries even Luke Skywalker. But Kyle doesn't care about balance. The man wants blood. As he hunts the sun across the galaxy from the neon-soaked vertical slums of Nar Shaddaa to the floating platforms of Bespin, he discovers a horrifying factory of the Force. Desan isn't just training Sith. He's using the energy Kyle accidentally led him to mass-produce reborn warriors. He's imbuing ordinary soldiers with Force powers they didn't earn, creating an artificial army to crush the New Republic. I will leave the story there, but you see, this is a very personal, very ethically ambiguous tale of a man that refuses to play according to rules. And I loved it. Gameplay-wise, at first, it's an FPS shooter, fast, fluid, cool, in some ways reminiscent of Quake series, but then the moment Kyle reclaims his blade, the entire DNA of the game rewires itself. Suddenly, the camera pulls back, your movement becomes fluid, the world opens up. You aren't just shooting at enemies anymore, you are dancing through the enemies. As you progress, the Force begins to flow back into you like a floodgate opening. At first, you are just nudging enemies off ledges with a weak Force push. By the midpoint, you're sprinting along walls, leaping 3 stories into the air, and using Force grip to dangle Imperial officers over bottomless pits like a cat playing with its food. You have 3 distinct lightsaber styles, fast, medium and strong, and you're constantly switching between them like a martial artist, looking for the opening in an opponent's defense. Man, Outcast was the jazz. But after it, there was another. Jedi Academy. And unfortunately, it's not entirely about Kyle anymore. A man has found peace as a master in Luke's Jedi Academy on Yavin. But don't be sad, we have him as a teacher. You play as Jaden Core, a gifted prodigy who did the impossible. You build your own lightsaber without any formal training. You arrive at Luke Skywalker's Academy as a student under the wing of now legendary Kyle Katarn. But the peace is short-lived. A Sith cult called the Disciples of Ragnos, led by Tavion, who survived the previous game, is trekking across the galaxy to drain Force energy from ancient sites. Their goal? Resurrect a Sith Lord from 5,000 years ago. As Jaden, you are sent on a mission from Tatooine to Hoth, eventually facing a pivotal choice: stay true to the light or succumb to the dark power you are trying to stop. The slow burn of the previous game is gone. You're a Jedi from the very first frame. Academy takes the combat of its predecessor and cranks the volume to 11. Total customization, you don't just play as a human, you choose your species, clothes, most importantly, your blade. Midway through, the game lets you choose between wielding dual lightsabers or the iconic saber staff, the double-bladed one like Darth Maul, and it completely changes your combat and strategy. Instead of linear path, you choose from a menu of missions. Want to investigate a mercenary base? Go for it. Want to fight a Rancorn? It's on the list. After every mission you level up and specify force power you want to develop. You can become a paragon of the light with heal and protect, or walk the edge by mastering force lightning and choke while still fighting for the good guys. It's faster, more acrobatic, and much more about the player's personal expression. While Outcast was a cinematic journey, Academy is a Jedi sandbox where you define exactly what kind of warrior you want to be. And for me personally, the Academy was shining in multiplayer. I spent countless hours on servers dueling with people on Nar Shaddaa. Peak Star Wars times. But okay, let's leave Kyle Katarn legacy behind. The man did a lot, and I highly recommend to try or revisit his adventures. Now, the classic of classics, Star Wars X-Wing. Oh man, I was just a kid when I randomly played this, and I absolutely sucked at it. Because this gameplay isn't an arcade fight. It's a high-pressure combat simulation. You aren't just pointing and shooting, you have to manage a machine. The power management is the soul of the game. You have a finite amount of energy and you have to constantly shunt it between lasers, shields, engines. Need to catch a TIE interceptor? All power to the engines. Taking heavy fire? Divert everything to shields and pray. The complexity of choice. You have to manage your shield orientation front and back, match speeds with targets, command your wingmen, and all this while dogfighting at breakneck speeds. The glass cannon feel. Unlike later games, X-Wing is notoriously difficult. A single well-placed missile or burst of green laser fire can end your mission in seconds. You aren't an superhero. You're a pilot in a tin can relying on skill, reflexes, and a very stressed out R2 unit to make it home. It's technical, punishing, and deeply rewarding. The definitive job interview for anyone who ever dreamed of earning the Red Squadron stripes. And the trench run in this game, it's hell, believe me. Okay. Last one for now. I have to leave some classics like KOTOR for another part of this story that I would gladly continue in the future. So to keep us on the same page, I'm not neglecting these. Their time to be deep dived will certainly come. I love Star Wars and I love God of War. The day that I saw the trailer for The Force Unleashed, my heart froze because of joy and awe. And as always, two there are. I would discuss The Force Unleashed 1 and 2 because sadly the second part is so short that it could be a DLC or it could be squeezed into one game. These two games took the concept of the Force and turned it into a carnage fest. While the Jedi Knight series was about finesse, The Force Unleashed was about raw, unmitigated destruction. You are Starkiller, whose real name is Galen Marek, the son of a hidden Jedi discovered by Darth Vader. Instead of killing the boy, Vader raises him in a secret as his personal assassin. The goal? To help Vader eventually overthrow the Emperor. Starkiller is a weapon of pure rage sent across the galaxy to hunt down the last remaining Jedi Masters. But as he interacts with his pilot Juno Eclipse and the Jedi he's meant to kill, he begins to realize he's just a pawn in a much larger game. If previous games treated the Force like a tool, this game treats it like a nuclear reactor. The world is highly destructible. Wood splinters, glass shatters, the metal bends realistically when you blast it. You don't just push Stormtrooper, you blast 20 of them backward with a shockwave. You can infuse your lightsaber with lightning, pick up TIE fighters and throw them like pebbles, and most famously, reach into the sky and pull a Star Destroyer out of orbit. It's a character action game. It's fast, kinetic, and focuses on massive combos. You feel like Force God among the mortals. The second one continues the power trip of Starkiller, who is a clone, or not, of the original Starkiller from the first game. Vader tells you that you are just another attempt to recreate his perfect apprentice, but you are defective because you are haunted by the original Starkiller memories and his love for Juno Eclipse. You break out of the cloning facility and go on a desperate personal quest to find Juno and figure out if you have a soul. The stakes are smaller and more intimate than in the first game, focusing on a man trying to reclaim a life that might not even be his. Gameplay-wise, it didn't reinvent the wheel. From the start you wield two blades. This changes your combat style to a whirlwind of slashes and stabs, making you feel even faster than in the first game. You gain the ability to make enemies jump off ledges and fight each other. You also have a super mode called Force Fury, where your powers become infinite for a short time, letting you vaporize entire squads in seconds. Responding to fan feedback, the second game finally allowed the lightsabers to actually cut through enemies, making the combat feel much more visceral and Star Wars accurate. One thing that I would love to point out in these titles is the absolutely great voice acting done by Sam Witwer, who voiced multiple characters, not only the protagonist. And fun fact, Sam is also voicing Maul in current canon, and he also does this very much brilliantly. Protect this man by any means necessary. And that's it for today. It's a lot to take in, and we barely scratched the surface of Star Wars games. So tell me, what are your favorites? And do you prefer new canon or do you prefer Legends? And once again, happy May the 4th. See ya!